One of these times, I'm going to hit that transition smoothly, where I fumble for my Jimmy Lipton glasses. We end our podcast session with a weekly dose version of the questionnaire that was used masterfully for 24 years by the great James Lipton inside the Actors Studio. And the first question is, Chris Gethard, what is your favorite drug?
Want to be clear, say that in general, drugs don't work for me. Murph, you've been present when I've taken drugs, and you've seen that. I've actually never asked you this.
Sure.
That night where I started doing all that MDMA.
Yes.
You were a person who said, like, you got to chill out.
Yes. Aside from, let me pause my James Lipton response here. Yes, of course.
I don't think we've ever actually spoken about that night. I've done bits about it, and I think I've said to you, can I talk about our interactions? But you famously were like, dude, you got to chill. You're doing too much MDMA. And I snuck into a porta potty by myself and ate a bunch more. And everyone who was a friend of me who was there was like, what the fuck is
the compulsion?
On?
Yeah. The compulsion.
You saw it instantly, right?
I saw it instantly. Yes. And here's the thing, again, you're a big boy, you do your own stuff, but you want people looking out for you. That's what friends do. So I did voice a thing where I kind of was watching from, I did not do any, I then was also like, let me pass. Let me just stay on these whatever edibles I was eating, or maybe I certainly had some beverages, I imagine, but I want to stay in a state where I was like just seeing what was going on here, because I knew your history. And I think people, look, I know that for myself sometimes it can trigger a thing where it's just like, oh yeah, you do not know a speed limit. You just have no speed limit. So there is no like, let me just drive along this lane. It's like you get in that lane and it's pedal to the floor. And I saw that. And I've seen that in myself and many of my comrades over the years.
I hadn't done drugs in so many years. And then that night I had you, maybe my most drug experienced friend, going, okay, I see what's up. I see what's up. Like we blew right. That was always the problem with me and drugs, is like, it blows right past fun.
Yes. Right.
The first night I ever smoked weed, did I ever tell you this? First night I ever smoked weed, I did 13 bong rips. First time I ever tried cannabis, I went that hard.
Goodness.
I always went hard at stuff. So that being said, knowing that it's not for me, knowing that I'm someone who's a prime example of a cautionary tale.
Yes. Who
doesn't want to glorify drugs, because I also, as you know, have lost friends to drugs. I will say, before the MDMA went out of control, it was a revelatory experience. It's probably the best drug I've ever tried.
There it is. It's the MDMA. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think not glorifying them, not stigmatizing them. That's literally what we're asking. And I think, again, one of the nuanced things is that just because I'm a big proponent of myself using drugs, that is myself. And I always listen to people and would never be like, well, maybe you should try it again. If we should, like, of course not. No, you know yourself better than anybody else does.
It's funny too, because you often on the show have to have the caveat of, I'm not pro drugs. Like, I've heard you have to underline that. And I have to say, as someone, you and I have a lot of love for each other. I feel like if I was touring through your part of the country and we hung out again and I told you, hey Murph, I've gotten really into such and such, I feel like you and I know each other enough that at the very least you'd go, this doesn't compute and I want to make sure you're okay, because you're not pro drug use and you've seen it in me. And if I turned around to you and said, dude, I've gotten really into coke, man, I'm handling it great, I feel like you'd go, bullshit, dude. What are you talking about? What's going on here?
Yep.
I want to be clear. I've seen it in action. When I've fallen off the wagon, it's not like you were sitting there with pom-poms cheerleading me along. You actually, out of the crew of people present that night, were one of the people who most had your eye on it for me, and that's always meant a lot to me. So
hey, thanks,
I can vouch for you that it's not pro-drug, it's pro-conversation, it's anti-stigma. I can vouch for that. But anyway, the short answer, man, MDMA is pretty cool. It's pretty cool if you can handle it. Unfortunately, I can't.
For sure. What is your least favorite drug?
It's a tie. One I don't know the name of. I was once in that stretch, Murph, when I'd fallen off the wagon. I once was booked to perform at a music festival, and drugs float around at music festivals.
Sure.
And it was right in that summer that you and I are talking about. And I was given something that I was under the impression was MDMA.
Ooh.
And unfortunately, it was one of those weird chemical hallucinogens. Like, I don't know the name, but you know how there's those ones out there just called like 2DCP or whatever?
Oh, yes. All the numbers and letters come, chemically.
It was one of those, and it was a scary experience. To take something thinking it was one thing and then to all of a sudden just feel all this weird headache pressure.
One
And
of the
then to realize,
terrible byproducts of prohibition, for sure. Taking things you're not sure what they are. Again, yes, it's absolutely let people, if let people take what they want to take and know what it is they're taking. You're right. Nothing more terrifying than that. That's at the heart of the overdose crisis right now.
I got out of the festival. Paul McCartney was playing. And at first I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm watching Paul McCartney while I tripped for the first time, because hallucinogens never felt like a great idea for me because I'm very mentally unstable. And then it just kept building and building. I said, this is too much. And I went back to my hotel room and I took a shower and I realized that I could make the walls change colors. If I looked at them and said, take out all the green, and then it would turn pink. If I said, take out all the pink, it would turn blue. And then I sat on my computer and I looked at pictures of peacocks all night long. That was bad. But I'll tell you, Murph, that was the worst experience I've had. But as far as the drug that I've seen cause the most destruction in loved ones and myself, the answer is alcohol.
Yes, the booze. Same.
We forget about, now that weed is being legalized, I think we can all look back at my entire lifetime and say, truly silly that substance was demonized and booze was totally okay in all of our houses. I've seen it wreck relatives' lives. It wrecked my life for a while.
Yes.
Bad news.
Yes, indeed. Yes, it is historically been quite the in the wrong hands for sure. And again, knowing yourself. And I didn't know that about you with the nothing like getting a hallucinogen, also an intense psychedelic without knowing, unwittingly.
I mean, I was vomiting by the end of it. It was bad. It was bad.
What celebrity's overdose death has had the most profound effect on you?
Oh, that's a great question. I believe this was an overdose. If not, it was implicitly tied into her drug use. I will say, as someone who's a loud and proud Essex County native, the Whitney Houston saga,
yes,
particularly tragic. Just just seeing someone who was so clearly in need of help, who so many people were making money off of her, that maybe the help came and went or didn't come at all at times.
Yes,
that one is particularly heartbreaking. I feel like the more, every few years you learn more details about what was happening with her, and it just becomes more and more tragic and cautionary.
What a talent. The Caged Songbird. Yes, it is a very tragic situation. I do say that in a James Lipton voice and realize it's ridiculous, but at the same time I am being sincere. It was a terrible situation, what we do to these talents. What age were you the first time you found yourself under the influence?
I was straight edge my first 3 years of high school, and then partway through senior year, I started drinking. I was probably 16 or 17. And you won't be shocked to hear, Murph, instantly gained a reputation as someone who went way too hard. I once in high school drank so much that some friends I was drinking with called another friend of mine to come drive me home. And he was my best friend at the time. And when he showed up, he physically did not recognize me because I was so obliterated. He was like, where's Geth? And they were like, that's him on the couch. He was like, he's not even the same color as usual. What are you talking about?
Oh my, yes. That's and I've seen the photographs of you as a younger man. You were a sweet little baby boy, and when you're first starting out, the size, the weight, of the alcohol getting into your system, that matters. So if you're trying to keep up with with people who might have been a little bit larger than you as well, you're a very, very small man.
I mean, when you're trying to compete with other people who are bigger and your own feelings of self-hatred, ooh boy,
that's a recipe.
Those are two races you're not going to win.
That's the truth. What is your favorite slang word for cannabis?
Ooh. I mean, probably like one of the funny ones. Like, I think it's really funny that people say something like sticky icky. That's just funny to me, It
is. The sticky icky. What drug would you like to deal for a living?
Ooh, if I had to deal a drug. I don't know that I have it in my bones to be a drug dealer of any sort.
I think that's a fair answer.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a lot of pressure and logistics and organization. It's not even morally like I wouldn't. It just seems like a pain in the ass. Like, I've run my own merch sales at times during my career, and I like run them through a website, and you're constantly going back and forth to the post office. I can't imagine what's happening when you're trying to like dole out small sum amounts of illicit substances to people who want them at all hours of the night.
It is true. You're on call. You're on call 24/7. It's a hustle. It's a hustle for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick, I might say something happy, like your shrooms, your
Yes.
MDMA. You know, the things that maybe have some mental health positives. Maybe I could see that carving out some sense of like a very small scale operation for things like that do have a reputation for helping people.
Yes.
I could also see myself being a dynamite ayahuasca shaman in the right context.
Absolutely, and you know that's yes, I could see that as well. I would certainly enlist your services. I think when I was young, I was fortunate. I had someone. Now, of course, you know I was a little pain in the ass, so I didn't always listen to my elders. But I had an older gentleman who gave me a lot of great mushrooms back in the day, who would always preach about set and setting and how to take it wasn't just, oh, let's meet in a parking lot, here's quick, take these mushrooms, get the hell out of here, young man. You know, he sat me down, he talked about them. He talked about the different types of that he would get, and oh, this is this, and that, and he always sampled his own to let people know this is the strength, and this is the, you know, someone who took pride in his work. And I think that's, as you're kind of saying too, a shaman, someone to guide you on that journey is very important with certain kinds of drugs. Yes, that's the truth. What drug would you absolutely not like to deal under any circumstances?
I mean, it's an obvious answer. Heroin is. Like, I don't want to think about people dropping dead on my bank account. You know, we haven't talked about it today, but I've told you before. One of the formative experiences in my adult life was that my best childhood friend died after a long stretch of heroin addiction.
Yes.
And it's a particularly insidious track to go through. And I feel like one of the things that I've always supported about you in this project is I know I've told you the last time I met him in person, he was like, we got to hang out. And I kind of dodged it because I had heard he was having a really tough time and he had been stealing from people. And that was the last time. The last time I ever spoke to him, I judged him. And I learned a big lesson on that one because I could have shown friendship and empathy. And ever since then, I've kind of viewed heroin as like a very out of bounds. I know that's one of the things that you'll sometimes say stuff that I sit there, I go, ooh, it's hard for me to agree with that based on personal experience. But when it comes to things like testing strips and
yes,
needle exchanges and safe injection sites, I sit there, I go, that probably would have at least extended my friend's life. Extended my friend's life. So heroin is the one that I just can't even stomach the thought of it.
Certainly understandable. I also I think a very important point there that you make is that I would just echo is that, you know, you'll never regret compassion. You'll never. And look, I'm not saying holier than thou. I understand sometimes people are hurt by the actions of others, regardless of drug users or whatever in life. Certainly, but compassion, you'll never regret it. You will regret the judgment, potentially, but you will never regret the compassion.
Even if, like, I think back to that incident, and I remember it clear as day. I know exactly where I was. I was on Bloomfield Avenue in Montclair, New Jersey. Ran into my friend Josh, and I'm like, I had been hearing that he'd been having some tough times, and like I said, stealing and this and that. And I'm like, even if we had reconnected, I was 23, 24 years old at the time. What was he going to get out of me? $60? What do I have on me at any given point? What's he going to steal? A laptop? Maybe. I would be less pissed about that $60 or that Discman back then, that early generation iPod, whatever we were carrying back then. I'd be less pissed if he had stolen one of those than I am at myself 20 years later that I judged my friend. Like that, I don't get to forgive myself for. I just don't. He's dead. I don't get forgiveness for that. You know, and that's on me. That's on me.
I think that's right. I think even from a selfish standpoint, for us as individuals, it's like even for those reasons, that's exactly right. I've heard many people have said that, expressed that similar sentiment. And of course, you want to tell people, let it go. You know, it was something you couldn't have avoided, whatever. But the one thing you can is like you just said, the compassion. That is the one thing you would regret. And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear? My brain just died, and I forgot who your celebrity was. Your celebrity was we talked about it. Jesus,
Whitney
it was
Houston?
Whitney Houston. My God.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a 1-year-old
It's okay.
child, and my brain dies sometimes. Let me try that question again. And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear Whitney Houston say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Let's see. What if it's like St. Peter's at the pearly gates? I find out I got in, he opens them up, and Whitney Houston just says, I want to dance with somebody, and that dance is you. And that first dance, on your way into heaven, you get to have that dance with Whitney Houston as she sings that song.
My God, that is heavenly. That is heavenly. What a joyous
there,
song.
man.
What a joyous song. Oh my, Whitney and Bobby Brown will see you in hell, my friend. Chris Gethard, these are your drug users.